I can see you with my closed eyes. I can see you. I can see you. I can see you with my closed eyes.
Welcome to Drive Culture. I'm Jonathan Rivers, and today we have the 2008 Honda Accord Euro R. And I'm going to tell you about all of the extensive modifications done to this vehicle. So we'll go over the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, take it for a drive. So if this is content you're after or you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. And with that, let's get after it. So what we have here is truly a special vehicle. It actually started its life as a 2008 Acura TSX. That's right, the first generation Acura TSX sold here in the US. However, for those Honda and Acura fanboys watching, you'll know that in other markets, this car was actually sold as the Honda Accord Europe version. And there was even a more high performance version called the Euro R. And the owner of this car not only changed all of these parts to bring it to the Euro R spec, they went above and beyond the call of duty to truly make this a street legal yet track ready performance sport compact. So I actually can't get into the extensive list of details, so what we're gonna do is have the owner come on camera with me here, and we're gonna go through this bit by bit. So Mike, what's up,
Hey,
man?
what's going on, John?
How's
How
it
are you doing?
going?
Good,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
joining us here on Drive Culture. So, look, you sent me the list of modifications in advance,
Yeah.
and it is a laundry list of items, right? I couldn't remember everything on my own, but why don't we take our time? Let's just go through this. Let's start with the exterior and, just tell us about the car. But, at first, maybe you can tell us what, when you bought this car, your history with it, and just kind of set us up from there.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, this is my new baby. It's a 2008 Acura TSX originally, now a Euro R. This is actually my seventh vehicle, purchased from a buddy of mine, turnkey ready from a friend that had put a lot of time and effort to building this car the way he envisioned.
But wait,
I'm
you said seventh car. Wait, seventh what?
seventh
Seventh?
TSX.
Seventh
Yes, from
TSX.
first gen to second generation.
I don't even know if I've ever owned seven cars, let alone the same
Yes.
TSX. Like, that's a pretty crazy stat, right? So you bought this car and it was like turnkey, you said?
Turnkey ready to go. It's almost like buying a model home.
It's funny. I did know that, right? You sent me this link. Like, this car was featured on, was that Motor Trend?
Motor Trend, correct.
So that's
Correct.
pretty cool, right? But clearly it's not the same car that was featured back then. So,
Yes, yes.
high level, maybe let's start talking about exterior, right? So,
Sure.
what am I looking at here? The everything from the front fascia to the hood. Why don't you maybe kind of start telling us what some of the key changes are?
Yes, absolutely. So this car's been through a lot of changes. It was originally had the Euro R front end, but it
Okay.
had been converted to Jace Racing, which is a well-known company in Japan that focuses heavily on racing and circuit driving. So the front end had been changed to a carbon hood, followed by an FRP front bumper and carbon front splitters to allow a little bit more downforce in the vehicle.
Dude, these canards look
Yes.
awesome, man. So like, is that a separate part that was added to this front fascia or?
It is all integrated and part of the bumper.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
all integrated. So that's sick. And then even this hood, like you said, is carbon fiber. So it was paint matched to the car?
It is paint matched to give it more of a subtle look to the vehicle without ruining the taste of the vehicle.
Oh man,
It
it
kept
looks
everything OEM plus in this sense.
OEM plus. You heard it from Mike. I mean, I think that's how I look at this, right? Because I think for like the unsuspecting person, they may be like, "Oh yeah, like that's kind of a TSX," or they kind of modified it, but I mean, it looks so clean and like you said, OEM plus. I'm in love. I think it looks fantastic. I mean, is there anything going on with like the headlights here or?
Yeah, so these are actually Euro R headlights. This is from the '06 to 2008 CL7 Accord Euro R. Does feature a little bit more of a frosted corner to enhance the difference of vehicles that are in Japan versus the USDM market. But
Dude, it
and it
looks
also
so
had
good.
integrated fog lights built in with custom HIDs
Okay.
to give it a little bit more of a retro new school look to the vehicle.
I mean, seriously, it looks so good. And so this is the original paint color as well?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, you remember what it's called?
Premium white pearl.
Okay, so there you go. We're gonna put it up there for you guys, but it looks fantastic. It almost looks a little bit like champ white, you know? I mean, but there's obviously
Yes,
pearl
yes.
in it, and you know, this is the factory color back then, right?
And that was my inspiration. Actually, my first love is a '98 Integra Type R in Championship White. But growing up with that vehicle, I had to deal with a lot of issues of, people wanting to steal the car and having to be followed home. So this would be the four-door Type R, in my opinion, why I fell in love with this chassis.
Oh man, it doesn't get much better than that. So CL7, right? That's the chassis code.
CL7 is the chassis on this.
Okay, I like it. I like it. So Mike, let's start making our way on the side here. So
Sure.
I always like to go right into like the wheels and tires, the brakes.
Okay.
So I mean, come on, everybody that's a tuner knows Volks Racing. They also know that it's these TE37s, right? Everybody's putting them on their cars. But tell us about the wheels and tires that you did here.
Yeah, so I'm running a square offset. This is a Volk Racing T37 SL. I'm running an 18 by 9.5 plus 38 offset. So it gives you that right smudge for a nice flush fitment without sacrificing the actual function of the vehicle. All wrapped with 255, 40, 18 all around with a Zenith RT660, which is manufactured by Falcon. So
Okay.
definitely a grippy setup, especially for normal canyon driving and also for short circuit tracks.
And I mean, obviously, you know, it's kind of sticking out a little bit there. So
Yes.
what's going on,
So
right?
right now it is on a race alignment. It's running a 2.5 front camber and about a 2 in the rear. So adding a little bit more camber does give you a little bit more sharper response for handling.
For sure, for
Yes.
sure. It looks super good, super tight fitment. Clearly behind those awesome wheels, there's a pretty nice brake package there. What's going on with the
Yes.
brakes?
So this is developed by Spoon Sports. Definitely one of the focus on this is to allow the opportunity to reutilize the same fitment of normal pads, and you can actually
Okay.
run OEM pads. Currently, right now, I'm running OEM pads just so that it doesn't create a lot of brake dust and keeps things a little bit more true to its DNA.
But those are four pistons up front, right?
Correct,
And I
yes.
mean, man, that spoon, that blue looks fantastic. And slotted
Slotted
rotor.
rotors by StopTech,
Okay.
followed with extended studs from ARP, along with spoon lug nuts.
Oh man, it's sick. Now, obviously, the car's also sitting really low. So just quickly, like, what kind of suspension setup is this?
Yeah, this is a custom S2 suspension valve utilizing a 16K front and I believe around 9 rear. So the rear is slightly soft since it is running a larger sway bar, but it does allow better neutral turn in, but also it allows you to take it out to certain tracks that will give you a little bit more throttle lift oversteer in certain cases.
Dude, it looks so good, man. So let's keep making our way alongside of the vehicle. Now, it's funny, if you guys have watched our review on the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 10, you'll know I talked about having these super tiny side mirrors. And when I got into that car for the first time, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard to see. But that wasn't the case, or at least I didn't feel that way. I mean, is that what you feel like with these smaller side mirrors?
They're unique in a sense. So talking to the previous owner, he put a lot of time and effort developing this mirror. This is a 1-1 inspired by a motorcycle. So he
Okay.
actually hacked an OEM TSX mirror to allow it to fit a motorcycle mirror onto this vehicle, giving you more visibility as well as more aero through the vehicle. So his focus on this vehicle was attention to detail, also lightweight.
I mean, that's sick that you said one for one, right? Like
One of one,
straight up
yes.
custom. Gotta love that. Looks fantastic. So, some nice decals here. Is the side sill standard, right? Is that
Side sill is a Euro R
Euro
on the
R?
CL7
Okay.
chassis, correct?
Looks really good. Door handles, is there anything different about these?
These are OEM Acura TSX door
All
handles.
right, I
So I
was gonna
left it
say.
in there just to keep it a little classy with the chrome.
I love it. I love it. It looks really, really good. And then, like you said, it's a square setup. So you got like the same setup of wheels and tires here in the back.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay. Brakes as well.
Brakes is actually modified. This is utilizing a CRZ rotor hub that
Okay.
allows it to give it more pad clearance. It is a lot larger than the OEM TSX rear caliper and rotor. So it is using the same rotor but CRV housing to allow a little bit more brake bias in the rear.
Oh man, it looks so good. But you know, much like again that Evo that we reviewed recently, like this wing here is pretty sweet. Like, and I mean, it's pretty prominent, right? So tell me what's going on with this rear spoiler.
Sure, so this is a Jace Racing carbon wing. It's adjustable to allow more downforce on the vehicle. Since the vehicle no longer has its rear seats, you need to accommodate the extra force so that it doesn't allow the vehicle to oversteer. So the adjustability on this is definitely unique in its sense, and this was actually taken from an FG2 Honda Civic Si. So this fitment is a little bit more lower than the CL7 J's Racing Wing to give the vehicle an OEM plus motorsports feel to it.
Oh man, it looks so good. You know, obviously, so is this the Euro R kind of lower kit here?
Yeah, so it is using the Euro R valance along with the Jace Racing rear diffuser to keep the aero functional. It is also airflow management. So when driving the vehicle, it keeps the vehicle on a straight line stability at higher speeds.
Oh man, it looks so good. Like you said, it's just very, very clean. Love the Honda badging, the Euro R badging. That's the actual badge, right?
That is the actual badge. Same with the tail lights. So these are all imported from Japan, including the integrated rear fog light. So that had been changed. So every little attention to detail on this vehicle had purpose sense just to fit the Euro R.
Of course. And again, like I've always got to prove out, I can speak and read Japanese. So Rijikara, which stands for rigid collar, some of their components. So I'm guessing they're on the car. But
Correct.
tell me about these exhausts, right? And this, I mean, it looks so
So
aggressive.
going back to this, the theme of this vehicle is not just Jay's Racing. There's a lot of spoon theme when you mentioned rigid collar.
Okay.
So to accommodate the chassis, I do want to pay attention closely on this decal. I am impressed that you are able to read the definition on this, but it definitely does enhance the vehicle to give it more of an NSX R-type feel. So
Okay.
Spoon had developed a lot of chassis components on this vehicle.
Well, see, that
Yes.
shouldn't have got ahead of myself there, right?
No
There's
problem,
a
no problem.
backstory to every component about this car, but
Yes.
you know me, I love exhaust and I want to get into it. So what are we working with
So
here?
this is a Mugen Power titanium sports exhaust with an additional silencer. So this is carb legal as well as keeping it under certain decibels so it doesn't attract a lot of attention. But the benefit of this exhaust does incorporate a lot of mid-range power along with the OEM look to it.
Man, Mike, this car looks so good from the exterior. And I think while there's a lot to talk about, we've probably covered just about everything. So next, let's go ahead and hop inside to talk about the interior.
Sure thing.
All right, guys, here we are inside this Honda Accord Euro R. And first and foremost, let's talk about what's going on here. This is a pretty sweet setup. Now, if you're not familiar, you're wondering like why the steering wheel is set like this, it's actually a really cool modification to allow like better ingress and egress out of the vehicle, especially because we're sitting in these bucket seats. But what's pretty sweet is literally it kind of does this, twist down, and you heard that click and now it's in place. This is the steering wheel. So I think that's a pretty sweet mod. So kudos to the owners here. So we still have Mike here to talk to us because again, just like the exterior, there's a lot of cool modifications done here on the interior. So one of the things that I talked about was this awesome Momo steering wheel. It's a super small diameter. There's no buttons, there's no communication, there's not even an airbag, right? Like it's as simple as it can get, but it truly is gonna make this thing feel like a go-kart while driving. So, but Mike, like I said, there's a lot of modifications that are done here. Why don't you tell me about these seats? What's going on here with the seats?
Yes, sure. So the seats is they're utilizing the Recaro pole position. They are FIA approved racing seats that allows you to take it out to any racetrack. It is also mounted on PCI Racing adjustable seat rails. It is mounted specifically for your height, and the position of the seat is strategically placed so that the car is balanced when doing a proper race alignment.
And I mean, it feels that way. Like my position, like I'm sitting really low, like I'm inside the car, which is a big deal. A lot of times I think, you know, especially from like an OEM setup, sometimes the seats have you sitting like too high, but admittedly, this is like probably the lowest I've sat in a while, but it's a very comfortable seat. And it is like this one fixed, you know, there's no adjustment. It is how it is. But it does feel really comfortable despite being ultra you know, bolstered and having these really aggressive shoulder bolsters. But clearly you've got, you know, these are 5-point seatbelt harnesses here as well?
That is correct, yes. They are Schroth racing harnesses, also FIA approved, so this one does allow you to be fixed in place during hard cornering.
Yeah, which we're definitely going to try out in the drive section, but I just feel like I'm going to be, you know, straight up locked into the vehicle. So, you know, obviously we can look right here. So this car is a manual, so hashtag save the manuals. And it's a 6-speed transmission, right, Mike?
That is correct, yes.
Oh man, this is going to be a lot of fun to drive. But what's going on here, right, with like the exposed shifter and everything? Is there something unique about this setup here?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's utilizing a hybrid racing titanium rod fixed to a short shifter assembly, so it does allow you to have a lot of crisp shifts
Okay.
into gear, but the height of the knob allows you quick accessibility from the shift knob to the steering wheel. So there is a lot of function over form in this setup.
Oh man, it just looks and feels that way. And like I said, I can't wait to actually take this thing for a drive. Again, being an older vehicle, there's no electronic parking brake, so you got the real manual side brake, which is really, really nice. But other than that, Mike, I mean, okay, I do see something pretty unique going on with the rear view mirror. Is there a story behind this here?
Yeah, that is, the previous owner had focused on having one-to-one piece similar to the side view mirrors.
Okay.
So visibility is his main concern when selecting certain components for this car. So it's using a Zoom Engineering Monaco 240mm rear, which allows you to see pretty much everything behind, including the blind spot.
No, I was gonna say, like, it's obviously like this crazy shape. We'll get this on B-roll so you guys can see, but it's a really, really cool shape to the rear view mirror. And like the rear of it is actually painted to like match the body of the car. So it's those kind of details that you just absolutely love and appreciate on a build like this. But is there anything else that really stands out? I mean, it's cool that, you know, you still got the traditional gauges, you know, harkens back to, you know, again, the late 90s, early 2000s. Is there anything else that really stands out that, you know, either makes this car Euro R or like, you know, just something that you've modified to make this special?
Yeah, so a lot of the components on the vehicle you can't really see, so the transmission would be the highlight on the vehicle. The drivetrain is using a CL7 Euro R transmission set,
Oh, wow.
along with multiple upgrades to the transmission that will allow you to engage with the vehicle as a driver.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, we're definitely going to come back and we'll talk about the powertrain, the engine, and the rest of the drivetrain. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this car is in super good condition. Everything still looks super OEM, OEM plus, as Mike likes to call it. And it's just nice that, you know, do these heated seat functions, they don't work anymore, right?
They work if you're in a racing environment.
Okay.
Naturally, no,
Naturally.
they are turned off.
There you go. So they're turned off with these buckets. But, you know, look, again, this generation car was the right size. This first gen TSX was still a lot of fun. It was nimble. And obviously with all these upgrades to make it a Euro R is really going to make it special. Now, as you'll see here in the back, there's really not going to be a place for me to sit. But let's go ahead and peek in the second row seats. All right, guys, here we are in the second row of this Honda Accord Euro R. Now, normally I would actually be sitting back here, but clearly there's no place to sit because the rear seats have not only been completely removed, but there is an extensive list of modifications and changes here to the rear. So again, I'm gonna ask Mike here to help us out, but clearly I'm looking at a full roll cage in the back. So Mike, what's going on with this?
Yes, so it is Auto Power Race 4-point harness roll bar, which
Okay.
allows additional rigidity to the vehicle, directly bolted onto the chassis, which requires no welding at all whatsoever.
I was gonna say, it looks like it's literally bolted directly in, and that's pretty impressive. And obviously you've got, you know, the 5-point harnesses, you know, wrapped around here. So everything looks super clean, really, really well done. But I mean, even beyond this extensive roll cage, I mean, what's going on back here? I mean, this is completely closed off as like one big piece. Mike, what is this right here?
Yeah, that is definitely a unique upgrade that the previous owner has strategically placed on the vehicle. That is actually an M&M Racing Honda truck room gusset plate.
Okay.
Which, believe it or not only aesthetically looks nice visually, but also it enhances the rigidity in the rear portion of the chassis, which, going back to that spoon rigid collars along with the roll bar, adds additional reinforcement to the back end of the vehicle.
I mean, that is super hardcore. Like that, this came from Japan, right? This part?
That is correct, yes.
See, again, like I said about the Evo in that video, parts that are shipped from Japan and, you know, installed here, I mean, that's true JDM for me. So, I mean, that is pretty amazing. But I guess the other thing that just kind of caught my eye is like up top here, it looks like these are the nuts. Is this for the coilover suspension, the adjustability?
Yes, so there is adjustability on the front and rear. This
Okay.
allows additional access to the coilover system depending on track use.
Oh man, that's so cool, right? You literally just open your rear doors and turn the nut and all of a sudden you're adjusting your suspension. So, I mean, this is clearly a hardcore setup. But next, let's go ahead and talk about the cargo space. All right, next, let's go ahead and check out the cargo space of this Honda Accord Euro R. So it's popped. I'm gonna lift it up. It's a little heavy, you know, with this spoiler, and I just want to be careful that it doesn't hit the glass. Looks like we're good to go. So normally, when this car launched, it actually had 13.2 cubic feet of space. And this particular car, spec from Acura, had the DVD navigation system, which actually reduced it to just 12.8 cubic feet of space. But the owner, Mike here, and everybody else before him clearly had a lot of fun tearing everything out the rear cargo space. So I'm sure it has even more space than that. But Mike, I mean, tell me what we're looking at here. There's essentially nothing inside.
Yes, basically the whole entire rear end of the vehicle had been gutted out and stripped down to reduce the weight of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing here. Obviously, there's no spare, but I mean, carpet, all the pieces have been removed. And so, like you said, some of that was to help with, you know, body rigidity, also probably to help reduce weight, I'm guessing. But any other cool mods here in the rear that we can talk about?
There's a lot of reinforcement. The only thing you can't see in there is the fuel pump that's integrated in the housing, but the
Okay.
vehicle itself, the whole trunk end had been stripped down purposely. The car originally weighed around 3,200 pounds, so this isn't as low 3,000 pounds. Not everything's all
Low
stripped.
3,000 pounds. I mean, that is in today's standards is a very, very low weight. And again, removing all these parts definitely will help with performance. So speaking of performance, next, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain of this Honda Accord Euro R. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? Just as soon as you open the hood on this thing, the engine bay looks fantastic, right? You can tell the amount of detail, quality, and engineering that went into this powertrain here. So I'm going to speak high level to the specs, and then we're going to ask Mike what about all these modifications are to this engine. So I can tell just looking at it that this is actually the K24 series engine from Honda. It was that 2.4 liter naturally aspirated engine. In its current state, with the mods that it has, it's putting out approximately 216 horsepower and 170 foot-pound of torque to the wheels, and that's through the Honda ECU. So again, some good tuning on here, but like I said, I'm gonna ask Mike really what's going on. Mike, so tell us a little bit more about the engine, the intake, all these modifications that are here.
Yes, absolutely. So again, visually, we want to make sure this vehicle does remain true to its form.
Yep.
OEM Plus again is the theme, utilizing multiple Honda components from different chassis and variation. All the components that are used are all carb legal in all 50 states.
Okay.
So it does allow you to pass smog and emissions with no issues at all.
No, and I mean, it's just like I said, you can tell, right? I mean, a lot of times people slap an intake, maybe some headers, maybe you know, things like that to the car and just call it a day. But this is so much more than that. The build, the components, everything is super, super high quality. But it doesn't even just stop at the engine, right? So you've got this strut bar here, right? What can you tell me about this guy?
Yeah, so that is originally by Comtech. Formerly, they did a lot of aftermarket accessories on the Acura lineup. That is made out of titanium, and then they have been renamed as CT Engineering in the Honda and Acura world. So that piece alone not only integrates with the chassis, but also allows the fit and finish to be very similar to OEM.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks amazing, right? It literally says titanium series right there on it. But again, that level of quality. But as I look at the top of the engine, though, you got these yellow coils here. What's that all about?
Yeah, so the purpose of that is to allow, accessibility on the actual coil packs itself. After talking to the previous owner, he did was inspired by Audi and Porsche, so he did allow the exposure of the coil packs to be allowed to be seen in front. Also, it is using a ultra lightweight magnesium valve cover to lower the height of the engine for extra hood clearance. So a lot of attention to detail and lightweight had been used in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like I said, every thought, every detail that was put into this car. Now, obviously, you got a pretty aggressive intake system here. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this particular intake manifold actually came from an FN2 Civic Type R. It is
Okay.
an RRC, which allows a lot more mid-range and high-end power. So this allows you to integrate the OEM factory hose along to the air box down to an ice box below, sucking in colder air.
Man, there is just so many mods done to this car, and I'm getting a little impatient. Definitely want to take this thing for a drive. So here's what we'll do is we'll go ahead and actually list every single modification that's done, not only to the powertrain, but to the entire vehicle down in the description for this YouTube video. So be sure to go through that to get all the details on this car. But there's no better way than to prove out this performance by getting behind the wheel. So next, let's go ahead and take this thing for a drive. All right, guys, here we are inside the 2008 Honda Accord Euro R. We're gonna go ahead and take this thing for a drive. So first, like I showed you on the interior, I'm gonna go ahead and snap the steering wheel into place. So there it is, nice satisfying click. I'm already strapped into the 5-point harness seat belts here. So it's a little loose, but just enough where, you know, I got a comfortable position here. So go ahead, clutch in. Right, starts up, sounds good, but you know, one of the things I noticed when they first turned it on for me was it's pretty quiet, all things considered. So go ahead, gotta clear out some things here. Okay, that should be good. Other than that, got the kind of old school navigation going on there, and with that, I think we're ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead, manual side brake there. Yes, I mean, it's really easy to drive, and yeah, the clutch is heavy, that's for sure. I'll try not to stall out here, but it's an Exity Stage 1 clutch, right? So it's a pretty aggressive clutch, and yeah, there's no hill hold assist in like a modern manual or anything like that. So I really actually have to pretend like I know what I'm doing here, right? So, but like I said, I mean, the car isn't that loud on the inside or even the outside. I mean, once you get into it, obviously, you know, you can hear the exhaust and things get loud, but it's very well refined. I mean, I think some of that is just the car to begin with was a, you know, premium vehicle, but even through all these modifications, it doesn't seem that bad. But yeah, shifting gears, okay, now I'm in gear. Won't rev it all the way out yet, but yeah, it's there we go. So third gear pull, fourth, it's really good. Yeah, it sounds good actually once you get into it. That K24 revving out sounds really good. Placement stuff is really good. It makes, you know, heel and toe really easy to do. It's great. And you know, like they talked about earlier, this transmission, right? So this actually came from a CL7 Euro R, and it's really good. One of the things that they mentioned is it has very short gear ratios, and especially in the first few gears, so very tight ratios. Also the linkage and everything feels really good. So here, I'm gonna try not to burn up the front tires, but shift in a second. Here we go. Almost a red line. Rev it out. Oh yeah. This thing rips, man. It's a lot of fun, and I'm actually already getting into those brakes, and man, those brakes are fantastic. I mean, just a little bit of a stab, man, really slowed me down. So I'm guessing at full stop, these things will stop you on a dime. But man, part of this car is the chassis. You can just tell how rigid, you know, all those things that Mike talked about, right? Yeah, you're hearing a little bit of scrapage in the back, but I was told that level is okay. So so ignore that. But I mean, the way that this car, like, you know, part of it is the seats, the body rigidity. Everything just feels so tight. It feels like I'm literally just bolted into the car, and because of that, it just has such good handling. The mechanical grip, obviously it sounds really good too, but man, this really is an awesome blend of like kind of street legal drivability, but also know that it can absolutely handle itself on a track. I think this car would be an absolute blast to go bombing down the street of a track, because you know, like I said, it just has all the characteristics. It's got great brakes, good acceleration, fantastic chassis tuning and handling. I think you can turn some pretty fast lap times in this thing, man. It really really is special. But at the same time, as I'm sitting here driving on the street, of course it's loud, it's noisy, it makes some funny sounds like I'm sure a lot of track cars would, but it's not overly uncomfortable, unbearable. And even despite how loud the engine is, and even the exhaust, it's bearable. Like, you could have a conversation with someone here on the inside the car with you, and the fact that I'm even able recording this on the camera actually speaks volumes as well. A lot of times, you know, I could get drowned out if the car is actually that loud. But yeah, I mean, this car is a really, really special build. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get up the hill here. Like I said, it is a little finicky with the clutch, but once you get going, it's not that bad. So here we go, first gear. Shift in a second. Yeah, there she is. And just ride it out. There's there. And I mean, this car is not slow either, right? I mean, I know it's not, you know, in the day and age of 3, 4, 500 plus horsepower in sport compacts, you know, 200 plus horsepower and torque may not seem like a lot, but remember, that's to the wheels, right? So the actual output's probably much higher. And part of it is just how it's tuned, right? Like, it has really good, you know, low range and mid-range torque, despite being a naturally aspirated engine. So here's a second gear pull. Oh, yeah. It's so good, and the handling is so good. I mean, it handles like a go-kart, and I'm just gonna keep revving out. It's really amazing, like the steering preciseness, like just the slight movements. I can't stop laughing because this car is that good, right? I mean, it is that good. This car handles like a Porsche. It's really good, and I can say that having driven several high-performance Porsches in the past, and wow, I'm just blown away, right? Because, you know, I mean, we've always heard that modifying cars can be fun, but again, a lot of times I feel like people just go ahead and start slapping on parts of their car and not really knowing what they'll change, or going through the extra extent of getting it professionally tuned and having professional installation of parts. That goes such a long way. And, you know, sometimes, again, people just do that. They throw a couple parts on and say, hey, here's my build. That's not the case with something like this. I mean, this is truly a professional work of art here. Every piece feels cohesive and feels like really like this is how the car was supposed to come. I mean, quite frankly, right, if you told me this was like a race spec built car that you could buy, I'd actually believe it. I really would. And just the fact that it's this much fun to drive and rev out, I mean, it's amazing, and it speaks volumes. So, you know, congrats to the original, you know, owner that built this car, and congrats to the current owner, Mike, who's letting us use it, because obviously he made a lot of extensive modifications to make it this way. I mean, but this is truly a modded work of art. So let us know down in the comments. Again, do you want to see more modded cars like this on the channel? We're happy to bring it to you. And again, let us know if you want to see more tuned out Hondas and Acuras. We're of course happy to bring you that. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. All right, guys, that's a wrap. What did you think of this 2008 Honda Accord Euro R? I gotta say thanks to my buddy Mike.
Of course, John.
Thank you so much, man, for letting us, you know, use your car, bringing it to the channel, giving us all your expertise on the modifications, man.
Absolutely, anytime. And special shout out to Angel, the previous owner that dedicated his blood, sweat, and tears on this project. And this vehicle will continue the progress when it comes to the evolution of this chassis. So looking forward to it.
I mean, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. We'll see you at the next one.
We'll see you, John. Thank you.
And so, like I've always asked, you know, please tell us your guys, you know, thoughts and comments down below. Do you want to see more modded cars like this? Do you want to see more JDM spec cars like this? We're happy to bring it to you. And if you've joined us before, thank you so much. But if you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. Thanks, and we'll see you at the next episode.